In this video, we'll be doing a deep dive into what I consider to be a rabbit hole Nirvana guitar, Kurt Cobain's Fender Telecaster that fans have nicknamed the Courtney Tele, breaking down the history, specs, tones, and many tunings of this overlooked Kurt guitar. While we talk about the various tunings that this guitar went through live, you'll be hearing my build of this Telecaster being played in that tuning. Keep in mind, I'm not trying to recreate any show specifically while you're hearing these. Just going for the general vibe of how Kurt's Telecaster sounded live in early 1992 during the Pacific Rim Tour. My build is a modded Chris Store Kurt Cobain Telecaster. Chris is the one who did the absolutely stunning and beautiful paint and relic job on this guitar. I've done a few mods to mine to get it closer to Kurt's Tele, and those will be discussed as we go through Kurt's specs. This guitar is a Japanese Fender Telecaster Custom, but it's hard to pin down the exact model or year with the little information that's out there. We do know that it's a Telecaster Custom because of the binding on the body. It was originally 3-tone sunburst before Kurt painted over it. It can briefly be seen in its unaltered state in the Come As You Are music video during the solo. Filming for the video took place over January 16th through the 20th in 1992, which makes this currently the earliest known appearance of this guitar. At some point after the video shoot, Kurt spray painted the body with blue latex paint and carved out a heart and Courtney's name on it. Stickers were also added onto the body, and depending on what you're reading, some will say Kurt added the stickers and others say Courtney did. Either way, the end result is a visually very unique and memorable looking Telecaster. Kurt obviously really loved blue guitars. This is not the first one that he painted blue. It makes its live debut at the Phoenician Club in Australia on January 24th, 1992. This was the first date of Nirvana's Pacific Rim Tour, and this guitar would go on to be a staple of that tour. Aside from the custom DIY paint job, this guitar was completely stock on that entire tour. Also, as a fun side note, for the entire tour, Kurt used the classic Fender logo strap with this guitar. As far as I could find, a late 80s / early 90s MIJ Telecaster Custom would have come stock with 1957 Telecaster pickups. For my Tele, the closest modern equivalent I could find to that were the Fender Ventera 50s vintage single coil pickups. And really quick, while we're on the subject of mods, the only other one I did to my guitar was swap out the neck. This is a Fender Baja 60s Telecaster neck. I went with this one because it visually matches Kurt's almost perfectly. One string tree, same style Fender logo, and its heel adjust. So while there's not a lot to say about Kurt's Telecaster on this tour spec-wise because it was stock, there is a lot to say about the multiple tunings that it went through. At first, Kurt played it in standard tuning for at least these dates for sure. For these dates, the Tele was used for a good chunk of the show along with his Jaguar. I read a really awesome comment once on the YouTube video of the Big Day Out show. I've gone back to try to find it, but I can't because I wanted to include it here, so I'm going to try my best to paraphrase it. Someone on the internet once said, "Only Kurt Cobain can make a Telecaster twang just as hard as he can make it heavy." I think this is the best description I've read of how this Telecaster sounded on the Pacific Rim Tour. Something interesting happens at the next show that we have audio for. On January 30th, the Tele is now tuned a full step down to D standard, and it's now being used only for Come As You Are and Lithium. This is super noteworthy as this is the tuning of the studio versions of those two songs. This tour has the only known performances of these songs being played live in their studio tunings. It seems to have become the designated D standard guitar for at least these dates. The last of these being the fan favorite Melbourne show that was officially released on the Nevermind 30th anniversary box set. Come As You Are is my #1 favorite song of all time, and this Melbourne performance is one of the ones I go back to the most often. The combination of that Tele with its stock pickups in D standard tuning is just magic and sounds so great. Starting on February 6th, it seems like the Tele changed its role in Kurt's arsenal once again. Come As You Are and Lithium are still being performed a full step down from standard, but the tone is completely different to what can be heard on the shows that we know the Tele was used for those two songs. The clean tone now sounds thicker and much more Stratocaster-like. My educated guess is that from here on out, Kurt's Hot Reel Strat became the D standard guitar. But when we jump ahead that night to songs like About a Girl, Smells Like Teen Spirit, and Lounge Act, we hear those bright and twangy cleans that sound very Tele-like. These are all performed a half step down from standard, or E-flat tuning. Nirvana would largely live in this tuning from here on out, both live and in studio for the rest of their career. Just based off the clean tones I'm hearing on these audio audience recordings, it sounds to me that the Telecaster was promoted to be one of the main live guitars again on that tour. Half Step Down is the tuning that I like to keep my Tele in. I personally think that this guitar playing Nirvana sounds the best in E flat. So for the remainder of the Australian dates and the lone New Zealand date, my ears want to guess that the Tele was a half step down and used for the majority of these shows. It gets trickier now when we get to the last part of the tour, the Japan and Hawaii dates, as there's so little video footage to go off of. Plus, the VMA strap makes its first appearance on the first Japan date, so there's now another tone we have to factor in when listening to these audience recordings. February 17th is my personal favorite show from the end of the tour, and I really think I'm hearing those twangy Telecaster cleans throughout the entire second half of the night. The February 19th show was also officially released on the Nevermind 30th anniversary box set. After the two Hawaii shows, the Pacific Rim tour officially comes to an end. There would then be a long 4-month gap of no Nirvana shows, until June 21st when Nirvana kicked off their European Nevermind tour in Ireland. We know the Tele was used at least 2 of these European shows, and by this point, the bridge single coil was switched out for Seymour Duncan hot rails, the one and only mod this guitar would go through. I wish I could round out this video by showing you how my Tele sounds with hot rails right now. Telecaster hot rails are shaped differently, so I can't just throw in one of my standard hot rails that I have. I want to keep both Vintera single coils in here long term, but I've been playing around with the idea of getting Telecaster hot rails so I could do before and after tone analysis of the European tour mod. If that's something you'd like to see on my channel, let me know in the comments. At this point in the story, the Courtney Telecaster seemingly goes down on the totem pole. Kurt was really starting to favor his hot rail strats in this time period, and the Tele went from one of his main guitars early on in the year to one that is rarely seen by that summer and on. In January of 1993, it went all the way down to the classification of end of set smasher guitar, as it met its end on January 16th, 1993 in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Kurt tried throwing the neck out into the audience, but the stage was so big that it didn't make it. The road manager for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who also played that night, retrieved the neck, as he put it, in no man's land between the television cameras and the audience. As he was back on stage, Courtney Love was walking by him. He handed it out, saying, "Hey, you forgot this," to which Courtney went, "Ugh, thanks," and took the neck. After determining it was beyond repair, the neck was left in the corner of a dressing room. Kurt's guitar tech, Ernie Bailey, snapped this picture of the neck and body together before the neck was left behind. That's where Jennifer Finch of L7 found the neck and kept it, and she ended up actually gifting it to that same Chili Peppers manager years later. He then ended up selling the neck through Mecca Records in 2011. So while this guitar only lasted throughout 1992 and the very first show of 1993, it's a noteworthy rabbit hole guitar. It's the only Telecaster that Kurt Cobain toured with. It went back and forth between 3 different tunings on the same tour. It's responsible for what some might say are Kurt's twangiest clean tones, and it's just visually very memorable and unique. I've heard some people say that this is their favorite Kurt Cobain guitar based solely off of its looks, and honestly, I don't blame them at all. Thank you all so much for watching. It really means a lot. I hope you enjoyed this one and learned something new about Kurt Cobain's Telecaster. I'll see you in the next one.